think Jesse has already laid the groundwork in a way for the topic here, the positive, expansive Chardi Kalaa. So I want to start by asking you guys, what do you think Chardi Kalaa is? Anybody? What do you understand by the term? Hanji.
Stay in high spirit.
High spirits, good. Hanji.
That's what I think. High spirit, yeah.
Any other thoughts on it?
Nanak naam Chardi Kalaa.
Tere paane sarvat ka
Tere bahane sarvat ka bala. But what is Chardi Kalaa?
Nanak naam.
Naam is Chardi Kalaa, okay.
Naam.
Naam leads to it.
इसी करके नाम ही मांगा उन्होंने कि तू प्रभुदाता दान बखूगा पंथ आले थे मैं क्या मांगू किससे
So Naam leads to Chardi Kalaa. Now, Chardi Kalaa, the word itself, doesn't appear in the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. And as far as I know, it's not from the Dasam Granth either. I tried researching on the web to see if I could find anything about the origin, and I couldn't find anything about where it came from or when the term was first used. My guess is that it may have come up during the time after Guru Gobind Singh Ji, when the Sikhs were in the jungles fighting, getting crushed so many times, coming back all the time, that it may date back to that time frame. And probably in the Singh Sabha movement, things got kind of standardized and then got formalized in the Rath Maryada. So in that process, this probably became a part of the Ardas. But we say it every time at the end, as you said, Nanak Naam Chardi Kalaa Tere Bhane Sarvat Ka Bhala.
Who did the first Ardas though? With the Guru?
Nobody knows that. There probably was some kind of Ardas during the Guru time, but there's no record of it. And probably not the way we do it now. My mother tells me that during the Singh Sabha movement, before that, only the guys used to stand up for the Ardas and the women used to stay seated. And so a lot of these things evolved and changed in that time frame.
So, Judy, your line, Nanak Naam Chardi Kalaa, Tere Phane Sarvat Ka Bhala, the origin is not known.
Nobody knows. And it's certainly not by Guru Nanak Dev Ji, though it says Nanak Naam Chardi Kalaa. So looking at the words themselves, Chardi, of course, suggests rising, ascending, growing, soaring. Kala is a technique, an art, a power. Vaheguru's power is sometimes referred to as Kala, energy, spirit. So Chardi Kalaa is a frame of mind or an attitude that a Sikh should strive to maintain at all times. If you ask different people, you get different ideas of what it means, but I think we have a common idea of the general sense of what it is. And so looking at that, it's kind of the words directly imply a soaring spirit, always going up, always positive, buoyant, optimistic attitude to life, to the future. It speaks of always being in high spirits, upwards and onwards, forward looking. But it also refers to resilience, to never giving up, always coming back when you're beaten back. And that's what people think of when you think Chardi Kalaa. Never give up. Even at the depths of despair, you always have faith in God and you'll always find a way to come back if you think positive. Refuse to be crushed by adversity. So the ability to rise up even after the severest of setbacks, and that has been a part of the Sikh tradition, our oral history, our sense of who we are. And it stands with the community and with the individual when we identify with that. Now, I don't have a lot of slides or things here. I'm mostly looking for this to be interactive, something we all join in to talk about, as we have done towards the end of the last session. So while the Guru Granth Sahib doesn't directly have this phrase, everything in Gurbani tells us how to be in Chardi Kalaa. Through faith in God, through faith in Guru. We're always coming to Vaheguru's Sharan. As long as you believe in Him, you have something to stand on. So it gives you a sense of security and strength. And you know that you're leaving things in God's hands, He will take care of you. Nanak, don't have this down here, but Nanak chinta mat karo, chinta tisi hai. Don't worry, let Him take care of him, let Him worry, right? Mera satgur rakhwala hua, Guruji says. He's always taking care of me, always protecting me.
Vichaar, this line that we just started,
Chinta mat karo.
Chinta tisi hai. My mom used to always quote that, and she would add something else to it. She said, she would tell me, if you worry about something, you get in the way of God taking care of you.
Yeah. If you worry too much.
I always remember, she says, then you get in the middle. Then how can God protect you? You worry. The minute you leave it, it'll be taken care of.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, it doesn't mean you don't try to fix things
I know.
yourself. You always do the right thing. Yeah. Don't. If you have faith, then you don't have to worry. You do your best.
The result.
It's doing the best and then leaving things in God's hands. Just that combination,
Do the
making the
best
full
that
effort. So, there's this beautiful shabad my father used to teach us when we were kids always. Remember this, Uthat sukhiya, Baithat sukhiya, Bhavni lage ja aise bujhiya. And what do you bujhiya? So you can be happy at all times, rising up, sitting down, sleeping, awake, at home, outside. Rakha ek hamara swami, that's the key phrase. Bhavni lage ja aise bujhiya, Rakha ek hamara swami. You don't have to be afraid if you know that God is always taking care of us. He's always with us. Sagal ghata ka antarjami, he always knows what's in us. Agge jaake aanda hai kauna ne gur mantra dedhaya. This is the mantra. Rakha ek hamara swami. So faith and security coming from that and leaving yourself in God's hands. Like tu mera pita, just very basic shabads that we all learn as children. Tu mera pita, tu hai mera mata, tu mera rakha sabni, tu mera bandhap, tu mera bhrata, tu mera rakha sabni thain, tambho keha kada jio. When I know that you are my father, you are my mother, you are everybody, and you're always taking care of me, then why do I have to be afraid? Right? And it's always coming to Vaheguru's Sharan, to always depending on him, leaving things in his hands. Sadgur ayo saran tuhari. True Guru, I have come to your sanctuary. Mile sukh naam har sobha chinta lai hamari. So you bless me with peace and happiness through naam, because the naam is the real blessing that gives me all this. Chinta lai hamari, and you remove all my worries. I don't have to worry about it. And this is another very popular shabad that mothers often teach their children, Tati. And in the times of stress and sorrow, you always teach them to sing this shabad, Tati vauna lagai parbram sarnai. Tati Vav refers to the hot air that in Punjab comes from Rajasthan in the summer, loo they call it. And the life is full of loo, different things that hurt us, that make life difficult. But so you'll still get that loo, but you won't feel it. Lagegi nahi, you don't feel the hot air, doesn't feel hot anymore. You have the strength to deal with it. Tati Vavna lagai parbram sarnai. As you seek the shelter of the Supreme Vaheguru, Chogid hamare Ram kar dukh lage na bhai. In Ramayana, there's this line that Ram put around Sita, was it, or Lakshman? I forget, around Sita probably. That says you'll be protected. Nobody can come through this. So there's that protective firewall, if you will. In the computer world, it's a firewall. So God puts a firewall around you to protect you from all the malware. Chogid hamare Ram kar dukh lage na bhai. No sorrows, no challenges, no suffering will come and really attack me, because I can deal with it, because the Guru is with me. Satgur pura bhetya jin banat banai, who has done all this, who's responsible for everything. Ram nam aukhad diya ekaliv lai. So aukhad, this is the medication, the answer to all our challenges is Ram nam. And this close love of God, Nanak Naam Chardi Kalaa. The Naam really is at the heart of the spirit of Chardi Kalaa. The live lag jandi hai na, when you have this constant attachment. Eka live lai, rakh liye tan rakhan har sab byad mitai. All my suffering, all my pain, all my illnesses are all my weaknesses are eradicated. Kaun Nanak kirpa bhai prabh bhai sahai. It's all in His hands. When His mercy, His karam, His grace is showered upon us, prabh bhai sahai, then God Himself is my help and support. So this is the spirit with which a real Gurmukha Bhagat approaches life. And with this idea in life, then you can deal with its ups and downs and still feel that you're never alone, because the Guru is always with us. Guru mere sang sada hai nale. That's kind of the bedrock of Chardi Kalaa. Then there's the whole acceptance of hukam, recognizing that God knows what is good. Everything is in His hands. It's all happening in His will. And He's all wise and He knows what's good for us. We may not always understand it. Hukam rajai chalna, Nanak likhya naal. This is the ultimate secret. It's all in His hands. It's to be in tune with that divine will. Tera kiya meetha lage. And we all know of Guru Arjan Dev Ji and how he could deal with all the torture of sitting on that tatti tavi and everything and still be able to say Tera kiya meetha lage. But God always knows what's right. We think that things are going very badly. Why did this happen? You get all how can God do this to me? Why am I facing so many challenges? But Guruji says, "Tum karo bhala, hum bhalo na jane. Tum sada sada dayala." God knows what is right. He's always generous. He's always kind. And He's always doing something that's right, but we don't always understand it at that time. Dukh daru sukh rog bhaya. Even the biggest sorrows can actually be for our good, but we don't always realize that. Tum sukh dai purak bidate, tum rakho apne bala. So you are the one who's the giver of peace and happiness, and we are your children, and we know you will always take care of your children. So Guruji tells us that the secret to being in this Chardi Kalaa is a spirit of gratitude, of recognizing our blessings. Because most of the times we have 1,000 things we should be grateful for, and we still feel there's one thing we don't have, and that's what we focus on. If you focus on all His blessings and are full of gratitude, then no, we are going to just approach life in a different way. Dadda data ek hai sabko devanhar, dende tot na avi har agnat bhare bhandar. So His generosity knows no limits. His bounty is endless. And if we recognize that and we tune ourselves into it, if we recognize that we are part of it, we are God's child, we have that divine light in us, then in some deepest level we have access to all those spiritual treasures. It's all ours. Then he says, Den har sat jivan hara, man murak tu kaya bisara. So He's always giving everything. It's our own lack of understanding, our lack of wisdom, that we forget Him and we forget all His blessings and we focus only on things that we think we don't have. Sukhmani Sahib chanda 10 bastule pache paave, ek karan bikhot gawave. Hanji? Ek bast karan bikhot gawave. Ek bhi na de 10 bhir le to mura ko kahan kare. So all His millions of blessings, if we didn't have them, what would we do? But we don't think of them, we only think of the one thing we might be missing. And this is a beautiful shabad that just refers to that, is in that spirit of just recognizing, all of God's blessings. Jatu mere val hai to kya muchanda. If I recognize that God is with me, then I don't have to depend on anybody else. Muchandagi is looking to other people, either for support, for something, or even for approval. Worrying about what they think of you, worrying about what they'll say about you.
Does mochanda means kind of inferior to someone or slave?
Yeah, it's being inferior, that also. To have to look to somebody is muchandagi.
Lower status, right?
That's one aspect of it, yeah. Depending on somebody else, you have to go ask him, ask somebody. Depend on him, but it's often translated. I see in translations many times they say you don't care for anybody. Parwah nahi kiche keri. Now it doesn't mean you don't care for them, because you have to be compassionate and caring. It means you don't care about what they think of you. You don't seek approval from them. You don't look for anything from other people. You only look for things from God. So you're independent in that side. You're carefree.
It's very freeing.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have to go through that to really free yourself in many ways.
Yeah. We have to depend on people in our life, in our jobs. We have to depend on our superiors and others. But and people, some people will go around flattering others or groveling or trying to network and throw the names of famous people and things like that. That's muchandagi. And a gurmukh one who's in tune with everything will still have good relations with everybody. He'll still get everything from them, but he's independent. He isn't doing it from that spirit of, this is the famous big guy, I have to flatter him or anything, or I have to obey him or anything. He's doing it because it's the right thing to do, but he's totally independent at the same time, right? You have that spirit of, the only only person I have to worry about is God and Guru, but I'm just doing my duty in the world. I'm treating people with respect, but I'm not looking for them for approval or depending on anybody.
To use the phrase of the younger children, you don't suck up.
Right, you don't need to suck to anybody, because the only person you bow to is God Himself. Yeah. Jatu mere wal hai ta kya muchanda, tu sab kuch mainu saumpya ja tera banda. If I am yours, then it's your job and you take care of me, right? Lakshmi tod na aave kharch randa. It gives me more than enough of what I need. We always, you can be at any level. Anybody in this country here is in the top few percent, right? In the world. And yet we always feel we don't have enough. So many people feel somebody else has more. Even somebody like Bill Gates or who's the guy who's head of Oracle, Larry. He says some things to indicate that he's feeling he's in competition with others to see I don't have as much as the other people have. So, but God's given us so much. We already have. Everybody has a lot of blessings, and instead of thinking of the blessings, we think of other things. So Guruji is showing us how we should feel is Lakshmi tot na aave kharch randa. And of course, the real Lakshmi we have is the Nam Dhan, which we all have. At least if we open ourselves up to it. To recognize what is really valuable, and God gives us enough of everything we need. Lakh 84 Medani sab save karanda, and we are served by everybody else in a way. The whole world exists to serve us. There's all our structure around us. If very mitra sab ki tyan na mange manda, and all my enemies have become my friends as I'm achieving this spirit. This is what the true Gurmukh feels. He doesn't feel there are any enemies, and then people do become his friends. Lekha koi na puchai ja har baksanda. When God Himself is all forgiving, then nobody is going to take me into account. Even all my bad karma is going to get washed away, because when I'm seeking God's sharan, then even that is all going to be taken care of. Ananda Bhaya.
Add something here about this.
Sure.
This line, Lakh 84 Medani sab save karanda. I've experienced that when you are working towards a positive cause and you're doing it with pure intention, not for your own glory or not for any reward or anything, it is amazing how everyone around you and even the environment, everything just serves you, meaning converges to fulfill that purpose. I mean, the path becomes so easy, something that seems so huge and momentous. It becomes so easy because all the positive forces are behind you, So this thing about sab save karanda, it actually happens. Everything converges to move you forward.
Yeah, when a Gurmukh is in tune with Vaheguru, it's like a little bulb by itself. It doesn't do anything. You plug it into the mains and then it can shine with the light, because you have the whole energy of all your power generation systems and the grid and everything is coming into that one little thing. So we are tapping that infinite energy of the divine consciousness of the whole universe. As you tune into that, all that energy is there to help support you in every way. Anand Bhaya Sukh Paya Mil Gur Govinda Sabbe Kaj Savariyan Jatud Bhavanda. So everything gets, all these things we worry about so much, they eventually all fall in place if we are in tune with Vaheguru. Even if it seems like going the wrong way, eventually it all ends up in the right place, because God is going to take care of it.
When you do your sadhana and you do your job, it's amazing how things automatically get resolved. The effort that you have to put is so little. It's like that engine has been started, and it just keeps getting done, and suddenly you're thinking, oh my God, this used to be so difficult. But then you know that this is because you've kept up with your sadhana, and really sab save karanda, and this line lekha koi na puche. It's not an account anymore. It's not how much good you've done or how much even hard work you're putting in. Lekha koi na puche, lekha koi na puche ja har baksanda. When the grace falls, there is no account. It's all wiped out. It's all grace.
It's all grace. That's the key. You hit on it.
It's so real.
Yeah, things have a way of always falling in place. Now sometimes they don't end up the path you think you were going to take. What you think was important didn't work out, but something else did, and then you look back and you say, it was all for the good. Things are, I'm glad it worked out this way.
And that's why in many ways it's so much better to put the effort in the sadhana, in the practice, rather than in everything that you're doing, because that solves everything. rather than putting all your hard work in. Yes, that is there. When you do that, when you put it in your practice, then it's someone else that is moving the mountains.
And sometimes the more more deeper you are into something that seems difficult, and where you have to work hard and spend a lot of time, that is when the challenge is to still take the time, as you said, to still take the time to do your part and Simran and so on. If you make sure you make the time for that, you actually end up being more effective on the time that you spend on everything else. You may think you don't have time for it. When you don't think you have time for doing part and Simran and whatever you are doing, that's when you need it the most. That's how to step back and do it, because then you'll have more energy and time for doing the things you need to do.
Another way it happens is you don't get flustered, because you are aligned and you are in harmony. Whatever is happening, you're able to deal with it better. So it's not just this superstitious thing that, oh, if you do this, everything will go well. It's not that. It's actually a very practical, pragmatic tool, I think, to keep your equipoise, your mind unflustered. And when you are unflustered, the results or the problem solving is so much easier. It's only when you get so agitated that you don't know, kithe meri chabi, kithe hai, kithe ho, you know, or samne pe nazar nahi aandi, right? But when you are aligned, then tadi nazar hi hote pai, because somebody else is directing your life. I mean, this is so clear when you do it, and it's so clear when you don't do it. Your whole day goes bad, and it's really I don't think it's.
Now, if you do approach it in a very ritualistic, superstitious way, then it has the opposite effect. You know, when people say, okay, I'll do this, I have to go do this many parts, so I have to go give this much daan somewhere because, you know, mannat manni hui hai. When they do it in that ritualistic way, then actually, if it doesn't work out, then people their faith gets broken too. You know, I did all this, I gave this much daan, I did all the things I was supposed to do, and it still didn't work out. So if you try to do it like a bargain with God, okay, main mannat manni hai, you know, then it'll have the opposite effect too, because then it destroys. Yeah, if you try to do it like that, then it can actually be negative, because then you start believing, okay, if I do this, then this should happen, and then it doesn't work. It has to be done in a spirit of surrender. You know, I trust Vaheguru, love and surrender, and I'm just doing that, and it's up to Him to do everything. Then things fall in place. If you try to do it like, if I do this, if I'm doing my rituals and my part and my daan and all that, and why didn't it happen? You know, then it can actually take you further away from Vaheguru also. So the important thing is faith and surrender.
I tell you,
and God's will. Yeah.
Even if it's like, even if you're testing, I mean, it's just the energy is, you know, the trade part, really, you'll know the line. Babaji says, in Ashki, there is no trade. Yeah,
exactly.
This is not Ashki. Exactly. Yeah, this is not trade, this is not commerce.
But you have to become his banda. Yeah. Yeah.
बंदे दी लेकिन अपनी बात छड़ के गुरबाणी तो
बिल्कुल
बंदे
that's the key.
बंदगी साहिब रोज तरो के प्यार
कभी शब्द आएगा जा तू मेरा होए रहो सब जग तेरा होए, but you first have to be his. You have to surrender.
बंदे तो डिफाइन किया ना,
surrender करना पड़ेगा ना.
ਜਦੋਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਮਿਲੇ ਨੇ ਮਾਧੋ ਦਾਸ ਨੂੰ, तो उन्होंने किया तू कौन है, अपने आप को पहचान, क्योंकि कहो नानक बिन आपा चीज़े मिटे न भ्रम की काई. कौन है, कहते मैं थोड़ा बंदा, कहते बंदा है तो बंदे वाले काम करे. He was relying on his miraculous powers. ते फिर सगने में वो ने अमृत छक के ते गुरबख्श सिंह बने, पर उसका नाम बंदा सिंह बहादुर जेड़ा है. अच्छा ये एक्सप्लेन किया गुरु कबीर दास जी ने शब्द है साहिब रोज तरो के प्यार. बंदे, what is your why you got this human life? भाई बराबर मानव देवरिया गोविंद मिलन की ये तेरी बरिया अवर का तेरे कितने ना काम. In this is the purpose of life. बंदे बंदगी इख्तियार. You adopt that divine love. बंदे बंदगी इख्तियार. साहिब रोज तरो के प्यार. If he gives you, still you love him. If he doesn't give you, still love. साहिब रोज तरो के प्यार. तेरा गुस्सा करे तब भी तू ना प्यार करना है. जे सुख दे तो तुझे राधी दुख भी तुझे ध्यान. ए है कि चढ़ी का
जे भोग दे ते की राजा दुख विच सुख मनाई.
No, I think there is a line, I don't have your kind of a memory, Vijay, that says that we turn to God because of our own selfish interests. You know, bachpan de vich log na कि मैं पास कराना मेरा एग्जाम ठीक रहेगा. You know, those are the beginnings, and that's okay too. अपने लोग ना exactly अपने लोग को कीनो meet, right? And that's fine too. There are different stages. Sometimes you're testing, sometimes you're asking, sometimes you don't have to ask anything. These are all, you know, these are all different nuances of love and loving and different stages.
Yeah, as long as there's love.
Yeah.
If you do it as an innocent child, then everything's okay. Then God is forgiving.
Yeah.
He says He's so great that even if you do it for your own selfish purpose, He still gives
He still gives you. अपने लोग
Never stop giving.
It's a very beautiful thing.
Beautiful.
वो कहते हैं मैं अपने ग्रीड करके ही तेरा प्यार पाया, पर प्यार पाया तो इतना प्यार पै गया.
Exactly.
ਹੁਣ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਫਰੀਦ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਮਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਸ਼ੁਕਰ ਆਪਣਾ ਨਮਾਜ਼ ਪੜਿਆ ਕਰ. ਮਤਲਬ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਂ ਨਮਾਜ਼ ਪੜਾਂ ਕੀ ਹੋਏਗਾ? ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹ ਰੱਬ ਖੁਸ਼ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ ਸ਼ੱਕਰ ਦੇਗਾ. ਤੇ ਮਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਉਹਨੇ ਥੱਲੇ ਕੁੜੀ ਰੱਖ ਦੇਣੀ. ਹੁਣ ਕਰਦੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਇੱਕ ਦਿਨ ਮਾਂ ਭੁੱਲ ਗਈ ਤੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਕਰਤਾ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਉਚਾਰਿਆ ਸ਼ੱਕਰ ਖੰਡ ਨਿਵਾਤ ਗੁੜ ਮਾਖਿਓ ਮਾਝਾ ਦੁੱਧ ਸਭੇ ਵਸਤੂ ਮਿੱਠੀਆਂ ਰੱਬ ਨਾਲ ਪੂਜਨ. ਉਹ ਇੰਨਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਪੈ ਗਿਆ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਬਾਕੀ ਸਭ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਫਿੱਕੀਆਂ ਲੱਗਦੀਆਂ. ਇੱਕ ਰੱਬ ਦਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿੱਠਾ ਬੰਦੇ ਬੰਦਗੀ ਕਿਆ ਜਾਂ ਤੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਵੱਲ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਕਿਆ ਮੁਝੇ तो सब कुछ मैंने सौंपया जा तेरा बन. जे बंदा बनेगा तब ही सब कुछ इससे मिलेगा. तो ऐसा समझ के देखना मैं अपनी स्यारप काहू कामना मता करे पश्चिम के ताई पूरब ही ले जा. स्यारप काहू ना
Even in चतुर्दशा नोबल अपना सबसे ऊपर करता है कृपा कथा का प्रगति वो दास का रूप है.
दास बनना है ना.
दास वो दास कौन है? वो समझना पड़ेगा. ए बता कौन है? वो जो दास है.
Exactly. The same.
So it all comes to surrender.
दास बनना पड़ेगा. We have to fulfill our task and then he's going.
Exactly. We have to surrender.
Yeah, self-surrender is the key to that. It's that building that relationship. It's over. It all comes down to overcoming. You're doing it without home, overcoming the home and just accepting God's will instead of our own. So we talked earlier about tapping that power of the infinite power like a bulb plugged into the into the grid. It's that relationship to Vaheguru that brings His grace and that produces the Chardi Kalaa. So our true self is divine, as Gurbani tells us. Man tu jot sarup hai, apna mool pachan, man harji tere naal hai, gurmati rangman. If we recognize that, but that means first overcoming our own ego. It's not I am God, but you know there's nothing but God, so I'm a part of Him. It's a identifying with God, but surrendering your ego at the same time. Not getting tied up in I Brahman. So it's that Gurmati Rangman. It's enjoying His love and getting into that. So when you are in tune with that, then all that power is there to help you and to be with you. Then you get to share His glory and power. Achraj Katha Mahanup Pratma Par Brahm Ka Roop. Now in this Shabad, Pratma is our soul and it's a roop of Vaheguru. Now I don't know the best way to translate roop, but that's one way to say it, but I'm not sure it's exactly right, but it's close. It's a part of that, it's a reflection of that, it's connected to that. So everything that you can say about God in a way starts applying to yourself when you are in tune with Him. And the Gurmukh at least, I can't say I'm one of those, but as you get closer to God, you start feeling some of the things that we describe God apply to us as well if we put ourselves in that frame of mind. Achat katha mahanup pratma par brahm ka roop. The soul is the embodiment of God itself, so we have that divine spark in us. And when you think about God, na hai buddha na hai bala. Now A can it refers to God, but it also refers to soul because they are connected, right? So na hai buddha na hai bala. God is never old, never gets old, so we never really get old. Even when the body is going to die at some point, but the spirit says young at heart. And there's also another shabad that says Gurmukh Buddhe Kade Nahi. Nahi Buddha, nahi Bala, nahi Dukh, nahi Jamjala. It's never in pain and doesn't get caught in death's news. So the soul never really gets there, it's always eternal. Nae binse nae jai aaj jogadi raya samaye. So we don't really die, we are all immortal. If we realize that, if we are in touch with that, we don't have to be afraid of death. Don't have to be afraid of getting old. एक फरीजी दा बड़ा सोहना शब्द है, जो बन जांदे ना डरा, जैसो प्रीत ना जाए. As long as my love is with God, I don't have to worry about my youth going away. ऐसे कितने जोबन प्रीत बिन
सुख गए कुबलाए.
कितने जोबन प्रीत बिन. It's the separation that makes you get old and die. Otherwise you never die. Otherwise you're always part of God. If you have that love in your heart, then you are part of that. नाए बिन से नाए जाए आज जुगादी रहा समाए. Always permeating everywhere. And we are part of that. Naes usan nahi is seat. He doesn't feel hot, he doesn't feel cold, so we don't need to be affected by anything. Naes dusman, naes meet. Nobody's a friend, nobody's an enemy to God, and so we shouldn't feel that either. Naes harak nahi is sog. You can get beyond. We always get tossed around, happy one day, sad the other day. It's that developing that equipoise, that state of sahaj, that you don't have to get tossed around too much by any of it. It's not that you're not going to feel ever any happiness or sorrow, any pain, but it won't affect you as much. You manage to float above it all. Sab kuch is kai karne jog. So within ourselves we have that spark of divinity, the touch of God, who is capable of everything. Here's another one. Now marta na hum darya. Since he doesn't die, why do I have to be afraid? Now bin se na hum kadya. This is a different shabad but the same theme. He does not perish, so I don't grieve. Now nidhan na hum bhuke. He's not poor, so why should I ever feel that I lack anything? Now us dukh na humko dukhe. He's not in pain, so I'm not going to let any suffering bother me. Avar na ko maran hara, jio hamara, jio den hara. The one who gives life to everybody gives me life, so nobody can really destroy me.
This is so beautiful.
Now us dhanda na hum dhande. Now us bandhan na hum bande, now us dhanda na hum dhande. He is not in bondage. I'm not going to be bound by everything. He doesn't get tied up in all these entanglements of Maya. He's above all that. So when I'm in tune with him, I'm also untouched by it. Now us mail na humko mela, us anant to hum sad kela. He's ever joyous. So we always enjoy that spirit of always playing all the time. We can get that playful spirit from God himself, from being in touch with him. Us anant to hum sad kela. I like that last line. So the ultimate basis of Chardi Kalaa is being in tune with God, who's always in Chardi Kalaa, because he's always above all this, and if we can maintain that touch with him, we get a touch of that Chardi Kalaa also. So another nice shabad. Dukh nahi sab sukhi hai re. This is the state of the Gurmukh again. Dukh nahi sab sukhi hai re, eka eki nete. There is no pain, all happiness. All this person sees, the one who's a Gurmukh. This is about the Gurmukh. Eka eki nete. With your eyes, all you see is God everywhere. Bura nahi sab bhala hi hai re, har nahi sab jete. Sog nahi sada harki hai re, chhod nahi kich lete. He leaves everything, doesn't need to take anything. He can give everything. He can always be giving other people. Kaun nanak jan har 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 hai. Kat aave kat ramte. So this is the secret, is to be in tune when the real Harijan, the real Gurmukh becomes like God himself. Har 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 hai. Kat aave kat ramte. He does not come and go anymore. This is of course the ideal. None of us, or most of us, are not going to be exactly at that stage, but even I think at every stage you get a touch of that, you a little bit, and it gets more and more. But even at the earliest stages, when you start relating to God, when you start surrendering to him, you get some of these effects at all stages. So it's a continuous process. It's not just a either or. It's not like either you become one with God or it's hopeless. You start getting some of it. Even if you do a little bit of Naam Simran, you get some of this Chardi Kalaa from it, some of this spirit.
People always, we tend to do that too. Okay, don't count and don't do this and don't say this. Don't get into guilty. We often say that, right? But when you commit yourself, let's say even if you say, okay, next 40 days I'm going to do it. It sets you on that path of practice. And because we people are very, very good and copping out and making this the last priority. But if you decide that, okay, I'm going to do this, even if it is for 108 times, or it's 51 times, or it's 40 days, or 21 days, I mean, whatever it is, I think making that commitment is very important. And if you can make that commitment, anyone can make that commitment without having these parameters, more power to them. But if you need this artificial thing to make that commitment.
But the commitment is the key,
The commitment is the key. It doesn't matter how many days, how many times, but just you have to take the time out.
Yeah, the Gurbani tells us, as Tigmonji was telling us, this Shabad we do every day, Bhai Prapat Manuk de Huriya, Govind Milan ki ehor teri bariya, avar kaj tere kitna kaam. So he's telling you what your top priority is. And we say it is, but we don't take out the time for it.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the last thing you do.
It's the commitment. It's
that commitment, even if it is the last thing you do, you do it.
Just not, like we have supposed to give a daswand in money. We think of that, and some of us actually do it. It's the daswant of yourself is the hard part. It's taking the time out and making some part of your day committed to that. That's the daswant that's really important.
And it's so easy to slip from there.
Start walking in this path, and then we start to see that Guru Ramdas is telling us who's his Sikh. Sikh अपने आप को सारे हम कह देते हैं ना, वो कहते हैं जो सतगुरु का तो सिख आखाए, मेरे वर्ड आखाए, ही अपने आप कहते हैं मैं सिख है, so बल्कि उठ हर नाम दे आप, then he tells him the whole routine what he is supposed to do. जदों इस मार्ग चलांगे, जदों बद्दा बनेगा, जदों सब कुछ मिलकर के जदों इस मार्ग चले, कहते हैं जो सतगुरु का तो सिख आखाए, so बल्कि उठ हर नाम दे आप, उदम करे, बल्कि परवा स्नान करे अमृतसर ना उपदेश गुरु हर हर देव जावे सो गुर से के चले जो सांस गिरास से आवे मेरा हरा सो गुर से उथे क्या सिख अखाए ऐथे एक गुर सिख बन गया है जो सांस गिरास ते आए मेरा हरा सो गुर सिख गुरु मन पावे गुरु नु प्यार रखता है असि हर एक एक्शन जड़े ना संसार प्यार रखता असि कर मेरा बॉस खुश हो जाएगा, मेरी वोटी खुश हो जाएगी, मेरे बच्चे खुश हो जाएंगे, मैंने उसे प्रमोशन मिल जाएगी, पर गुरु को खुश करना है, that is the main objective. जो सांस गिरास जाए मेरा आरन, सो गुरसिख गुरु मन पावे, जन नानक दूर मंगे जिस गुरसिख की, गुराम ने कहा मैं उसे दूर मंगना मैं, जो आप जब है अपने नाम लिखा, उनका जॉब है भी, सो उन्हें सारा रूटीन दास्ता, फिर चढ़े दिवस पर गुरबानी का अपने बहन दिया उठे नाम दिया.
And the thing is, when you do that, it really comes to Jatu Mera Hai, Sab Log Tera Hai.
बंदा बन गया जब बंदा को बन गया तो सारे कामों करता है असली साड़ा मन नहीं मनता पर गुरु रामदास को देख लो he was his parents died
he was an orphan
अच्छा आजकल के टाइम पे ऑर्फन की भी कोई लाइफ नहीं है इमेजिन 400 years ago पर देखो तान रामदास को जिन सिरिया ते पूरी हुई करामा जी उन्होंने बंदा बन गया तो लोगों को सीखी है तो समथिंग पार ब्रह्म का नमस्कार imagine that and he in the world life he was only about 43 years old what he accomplished Guru Ramdas can you imagine that उन्होंने खान वास्ते रोटी नहीं देते
his uncles didn't feed him
पर आज देखो देखने में कितने हजारों लोग देखने तांतान Guru Ramdas जी क्या कहते हैं करते थे So, and you know
when we hear these stories, very often we say, oh, the Guru said it. That's why. But the thing is, they came into this human form and they had those human pains. Right. But what I'm saying is that he went through that pain of being an orphan and staying hungry. As a child, he was deprived. So it's not that he didn't feel the pain. He felt the pain, but he transcended it because of his...
When you got $1 million, you don't care for a dollar. Okay? $1 million care now. जिन्होंने वो मिल गया, he is so enjoy, मतलब कि वो पता है जो पोंगियां बेचते सी ना, ते उधे च किसे विद्वान ने दसिया है, ते कहने ने पोंगियां ले लो, राम जपावन पोंगियां ले लो, मतलब कि वो जिस वेले पोंगियां बेचते पहले ना, तब भी देखो ना सिमरन चल रहे हैं। उन गुरु अमरदास जी नू कुरियाई जड़ी मिली है,
वो पानी ढोन करके नहीं मिली उस वेले वाटर कैरियर बड़े हैगे सी ते मिलियन क्योंकि दे वर नो प्लम्बिंग वाटर कैरियर बड़े हैगे सी पर ये वे कि ਜਦੋਂ ਪਾਣੀ ਲੈ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਸੀ ਸਾਰਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਦੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਜੋ ਸਾਸ ਕੀ ਰਾਸਤਾ ਹੈ ਤੇਰਾ ਉਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੀ could understand who I am ਮਨ ਤੋਂ ਜੋ ਸਰੂਪ ਹੈ ਆਪਣਾ ਮੂੰਹ ਪਛਾਣ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਪਛਾਣ ਲਿਆ ਮੇਰੇ ਅੰਦਰ immense power ਹੈ and that really showed up.
This next shabad also ties into that. जिसका पिता तू है मेरे स्वामी तिस बार भूख कैसी. If my father is the wealthiest in the whole universe, then I don't have to be poor. He's going to give me everything I need. जिसका पिता तू है मेरे स्वामी तिस बार भूख कैसी. नवनिध नाम निधान कर तेरे मन बाछे सुलैसी. The greatest wealth of all of Naam, he's full of that, and whoever really desires it can get it. पिता कृपाल आ गया ये दीनी बारक मुख मांगे सो देना. When we really act like his child, when we trust that he's our father, and we build that relationship, then he's going to take care of us, and he's going to give us whatever we ask for, as long as father he knows it's good for us. Nanak barak daras prab chahe moh hirday brase charna. But all, as a child, excuse me, I have a cold and keep clearing my throat. Nanak daras. I have some tea here. It's okay. Daras prab chahe moh hirday brase charna. But if you're really, Guruji is showing how, if you're as a real child of God, as really relating to him as parent, then all he's looking for is tera darshan chahiye manu. I don't need anything else. When God's going to shower all his blessings, and part of that is the realization of what the real wealth is also. So it all comes down to relating to Vaheguru and having faith in him, and developing that confidence, that positivity, and the hope that comes out of it, the Chardi Kalaa that comes out of that. Now this applies not only to our individually but to the community itself, and that's why we always think of Sikhism and Chardi Kalaa, because we think of all the Khalsa as relating to Vaheguru himself. So this greeting Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh is a great example of that spirit. Tie it into Vaheguru. Khalsa is Vaheguru's. That's why we believe that Vaheguru will take care of it, because it's all his victory.
Which is the origin of the word Khalsa. I learned from Principal Satyav Singh many years ago, decades ago, when he used to go to camps. He said that there was a land that was called Khalas land, which belonged to the king. And there was no tax on it, and there was no leasing of that land. So, yes, Khalsa is pure and all of that, but it's also directly belonging to the sovereign. That's the root of the word.
Yeah, that may be certainly one of the roots. It also appears in Kabir Ji's Bani, which is before the Guru's. Khalse. So Khalsa also means belonging to.
That is pure.
Or relating to God, it can mean that also. God's own.
God's own.
Whichever way you look at it, it fits in. But the word has certainly been around before that, but Guruji applied it to the Khalsa that he created. But Khalas as pure is part of the root also. It may be a combination of these things. The Khalsa belongs to Vaheguru. So Chardi Kalaa is a factor not at the individual level but also as a community level, and it's been part of the Sikh oral tradition and our sense of who we are. It has tied into that, and that's been a part of the community's Chardi Kalaa. The community has come back time and time again from the deepest of times of adversity and everything. In Gurbani, you also see this phrase about bloom, kheda, as also kind of relates to Chardi Kalaa and how you always experience that. As Guruji says, "Sab mein rav raya prabhe ko pek pek nanak biksai." It's seeing the divine light and being in touch with it. It says, "I see God in everybody and everything, and that's why I'm ever in bloom like a flower." Now that's an aspect of Chardi Kalaa also, right? Even that Shabad that we were doing in Japji Sahib, it's recognizing God's glory and the beauty all around. It contributes to that sense of positivity. And then this one, Saptan man harya hoya man khirya harya bhag. The mind is like a garden. My mind of a Gurmukh is like a garden full of flowers. And there's also the example of greenery that comes out everywhere. Haryaval hoi sab, of lush growth. And then the example of Basant, of spring. The season is always of spring, of one who's in tune with Vaheguru. It's always spring. It's always an uplifting, positive, cheerful. In spring everything grows. It's flowers and blooms and so on. Sabde sada basant hai, jit tan man harya hoye. It's always spring through the Shabad. And that's why your body and your spirit is always green and in bloom. Nanak naam na visre jin sarya sab koe. And that ties into that. Then Nanak tina basant hai, jin gurmukh vasya man soe. Har vutthe man tan par phade. Again, the body and the mind is all in bloom, all growing, blossoming forth. Sab jag harya hoye. So when we are in tune with Vaheguru, you get that it's always spring, it's always growth, it's always positivity, it's always bloom, ever in bloom. So Chardi Kalaa, the phrase may not appear in Guru Granth Sahib, but that spirit is there everywhere. That spirit of bloom and Haryaval is Chardi Kalaa, right? Then another aspect of Chardi Kalaa, as I think you were referring to either, it's when you're giving, when you're doing something for others, that's where one feels most fulfilled and uplifted. The uplifting aspect of Chardi Kalaa comes from getting away from one's home and doing things for other people. And the concept of one chakko and seva and sikhi is a big part of our Chardi Kalaa, of the community. That as a community we see ourselves doing that, we see that as being important, and that contributes. If we think in those terms and get in touch with that, then that also is a big part of our Chardi Kalaa at the individual and the community level. Because altruism and seva are uplifting. Brahm Jnani Paropkaro Maha. The one who realizes God always gets delights in doing good things for other people. Generosity of spirit and goodwill towards others. One of the very unique things about our faith is that we end our prayer, instead of saying Amen, we say Sarbat Ka Bhala. We are wishing for and praying for the good of everybody. And it's, of course, we do it sometimes just ritualistically, we do it without thinking, but when we connect to that and think in those terms.
What does Amen mean? What does Amen?
Amen just means I agree with what was said before. It's the one thing that the community says. It's a ritual, and our ritual says Sarbat Ka Bhala, and it's very meaningful because it contributes to this sense of, let's think positive about other people, not just about ourselves alone. And generosity of spirit and goodwill towards others, that is a hallmark of the definition of Chardi Kalaa. When we talked about Chardi Kalaa in the beginning, that's another aspect of it. Selfishness, the idea of gimme, that and how may always leads to Dhandi Kalaa. As long as you're thinking only of yourself and looking for more, you may think it makes you happy, but it always makes you unhappy, because then you feel you lack something. And as long as you feel there's a lack,
there's no contentment.
Yeah, there's no contentment. As long as we are looking for ourselves, it's hard to be contented. It's hard to be positive. It's hard to be in an uplifting state of mind. We are kind of, you wallow in pain as long as you're selfish, right? That's what we think we're doing it to make ourselves happy, but it actually makes us unhappy as we focus in on ourselves. And there have been some important studies where they've surveyed people at doing different things and levels of happiness. And the happiest people are always the ones who are serving others and who are doing things for other people. There's always more happiness in that. Caregivers are happier people generally. People who are in volunteer organizations, they rate very high on the happiness scales. So giving of ourselves makes us happy. And of course, we've concentrated more on Gurbani and what Gurbani tells us, but a lot of the concept of Chardi Kalaa is strengthened by our Sikh history. It's full of examples, and wasn't planning to talk about that much here, but the examples of maintaining that spirit. Guru Arjan's whole life, his Bani is all full of positivity, and he went through the worst suffering and torture and still said Tera kiya meetha lage, and managed to do that. And then Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, who actually gave his life for others, went in a positive spirit saying, you want to convert them, first convert me first. And Guru Gobind Singh Ji, who at 10 years old said to his father, it's a time for a sacrifice. He encouraged his father to go do that. And of course his whole life, Guru Gobind Singh Ji's life full of energy, of positivity, of doing things. cheering up, being a cheerleader for the Khalsa, of converting a downtrodden community of farmers who had never been able to resist anybody, and creating one of the world's mightiest forces that brought down the whole Mughal Empire. Now that is all Chardi Kalaa. And the Sikhs, and he went through ups and downs. I mean, the jungles of Machiwada, and they basically had to barely escape and lost all their things. And he's still even in the middle of war, he used to make his soldiers stop and do Asadiwar in the mornings and do part. Never forget Waheguru, keep your Chardi Kalaa, and so on. And in our Ardas, we remember martyrs who went through all that. And more recent history, Sikhs have always come back. Even the more recent challenges of 1984, the community is still here. It's still getting back to God. It's still coming back in many ways.
Making movies like Son of a Sardar.
Yeah, we do have a Sikh Prime Minister and a Sikh.
Come back with vengeance.
Yeah. So of course there are ups and downs even now. We have a lot of we hear of lots of problems in Punjab and a lot of drug addicts and other things like that. But there are also people who are working on dealing with that, and there are groups who are remaining in touch with Gurbani and Waheguru, and that activity is continuing in a big way. It's always a small percentage that are actually following the path. There are always a lot of other people who are wandering around in different levels, but the core essence of Sikhi continues, and we have the Guru Granth Sahib and Gurbani, so that's that source of Chardi Kalaa always, ultimately. So I had a very short presentation. I just wanted this to be a discussion, and let us all share our thoughts on that. So anybody has any thoughts on what you feel in your personal life? Are the times when you're most upbeat and positive versus the time when you're down? Any comments on those kinds of things from your personal experience? What does Chardi Kalaa mean in our personal lives? Or any other?
Just really be aware they can immediately you realize dukh tadde jab visar jata just really they can dukh lag gaya technical ho rahi वैसे करके कि I'm trying to do और सुख और दुख की definition ही जो है सुख ਅਸੀਂ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੀ achievement ਨੂੰ ਸੁਖ ਸਮਝਿਆ somebody supports me मेरी होमे ਨੂੰ ਹੀਟਰ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸੁਖ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਮੂੰਹ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਪਰ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ if we have really instead of pleasing the word, this word is ਜਗਤ में ਝੂਠੀ ਦੇਖੀ ਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸੋ ਜਦੋਂ ਪਰਮਾਤਮਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਤੁਝੇ ਤਾਂ
Yeah, we tie the idea of happiness to home, and actually the only happiness comes from where we turn away from home. Home is actually the source of making us unhappy, though we think it makes us happy. Things related to that.
So on the one hand, there is this entire message of Chardi Kalaa, and then the scripture ends with the shalok of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji that just just
but it's not
holds up a mirror to what the reality is. And then the whole message of Chardi Kalaa is knowing this, even though it is like that, you have to face this jagat mein chuti dekhi preet ko kahu ko nahi, right? All of that, and you have to live in Chardi Kalaa in spite of that, because really there is something beyond all these worldly relationships, and it's very difficult to comprehend and very difficult to grasp it until you have experienced it. And that's why Sikh is so experiential, and it's not in the found in the intellectual discussions, though they are helpful, but it's really all about experiencing that naam on a daily basis and feeling that yes, mera satgur rakhwala hua, feeling that shadra nek chalawat ka aftab nek na lagan paave, just having that confidence, even though jagat mein juti dekhi preet.
It's all about love. There's a lot of the love is self-centered, and that's what he's referring to there. But there's the love of giving, and that's ultimately it's all about love also.
there he also says that Sukh Dukh Dono Sam Kar Jana. I think that's Chardi Kalaa too.
Yeah.
Whatever comes your way, seeing it, taking it.
See, as humans, as we are taught, as we are subject to homa and our limitations, we go up and down. We have happy, we are sad, and so it's like a wave. And we often spend more time at the bottom and less in those short peaks. And what you get through Naam Simran is the distance between the peaks get less. So your Dukh Sukh Samkar Jane. The average goes a little higher of the curve. And the part where we spend it, the higher part of the thing is a little more. And you'll still go down a little, but you'll go up and you'll stay up a little longer. You'll go down less and you'll stay up a little higher. And then you'll eventually end up there. We are not going to stop having periods of positivity and negative because we are human. We will have, things going well and things not going so well, but we can deal with it and we can reduce those fluctuations. We can make the curves smaller and we can stay more often near the top. So we can make progress even. You don't have to be perfect. What Gurbani describes, it usually describes the two extremes. It describes the Gurmukh and the Manmukh. And the Gurmukh is ideal and perfect, and we say, oh, we can never get there. That's only the Guru.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, we are not as bad as the complete Manmukh either, because most of us have both parts in them. So we're going to be somewhere in the middle. We'll oscillate back and forth, but hopefully we'll get closer and closer to that ideal. And even in the beginning, even when you do a little bit, you start getting the benefits all along. So you start moving up that curve. So the thing is to never give up, but to keep at it, because the blessings are there every step of the way. एक शब्द है ना, चरण शरण गुर एक पेंडा जाए चल, सतगुर कोट पेंडा आगे होए लेत है. You take a step, and the Guru takes 100 steps or million steps forward to receive you. So there's always that help. Court is crore, 10 million.
Oh, wow.
It's just a number. It means lots.
Well, I know that. I was just
Lakh and crore, right? Guru takes 10 million steps towards you. Chachi, Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.